think the Chinese and the Russians especially, have probably been planning this ever since they lost World War II. I mean, at least some divisions of Russian generals have been off, figuring what they can do, and the plans have maybe gotten quite dramatic and often patient. That's why I can say, breathe easy for the next year more than likely, because they're very patient. They need to build that case up, and they've been very patient since 9/11 and allowed America to basically make an ass of itself across the world, so that when they do attack us, they can be the heroes, and they can justify their reasons for attacking us.
Yeah, for some reason
they old thinking.
They certainly want to downplay it in our own media. They thought it was just simply interesting when the Russian government announced, when I say they, I mean the spokesman for the Pentagon, said that it was just merely interesting when Putin announced that they were going to be on a regular basis having bomber patrol units going up and down the Atlantic. This is about the same time they planted the flag over by the Arctic. So it's very, very interesting that Al-Qaeda seems to stay in the news to a certain degree, but these conflicts are out of the news to a certain degree.
Well, I don't like to even talk about or even post on the internet, but as far as the Middle East is concerned, and I mean, America's not going to say anything about that because they don't want to threaten us. That's why they're not going to tell us this satellite deal is part of the missile shield and part of letting China and Russia know that they'll knock their satellites out if they dare attack us as well. I mean, that's too scary to talk about. That's why we need people like you, so that we can talk about this stuff. But they're not going to admit to that kind of thing. That goes against everything that they stand for.
Let's go back to what you see in terms of after the earthquake, and then from there we can have a deeper discussion about realizing who we are and to a certain degree where we are as these things transpire around us on a spiritual note. But in terms of the physical, what else do you see about that same time that the Chinese take the West Coast?
Well, I see it starting with the missile attack. I just see us one day as Americans waking up and seeing that we're being bombarded by conventional missiles, especially on the East Coast in Washington, D.C. And I see these missile attacks as very precise and hitting government installations. I see it being very clean. I see it scaring us, and especially people that live along the East Coast, and so they're all packing up their cars and driving and flooding the highways. We already have a mass exodus that's going on from the West Coast, and we also have like FEMA and our troops on the West Coast because of the disasters and everything that's going on there. So it's kind of the beginning, and I think they're just going to watch us fall apart internally before the troops actually come in, because the troops are going to be called quote-unquote peacekeepers, and they'll be Russian-led, but most of the troops will be Chinese, so it'll be both Russians and Chinese coming in, and they'll be coming up to Americans saying, our way is a better way. They have a plan, and if you follow our way, everything will be good for you, and it will be. They'll take you in and they'll give you a little implant in your hand that'll have cash value that you can build your new life with, and so it'll be very seductive, and it'll seem very, very peaceful to some people. Of course, other people aren't going to go for that, especially people that are going to, see that as a mark of the beast and a scary anti-Christian thing to do. And they'll be in for it. They'll go into the prison camps. They'll get the retinal eye scanners to ID who they are and in their system, and just keep them locked up. And again, those are the states that I mentioned that I wouldn't want to be in: California and Oregon and Washington.
Yeah. In the meantime, where do you see our government?
Fighting really hard. I mean, first they're going to withdraw from overseas, so they're going to withdraw from the Middle East. There is this policy that's going to be out there about nuclear weapons, because people think MAD is what keeps this from happening, but Russia has been saying and China has been saying for a while now, and they'll make it quite clear when they declare war on America, that if the first country that uses a nuke in this war will receive the entire stockpile of Russia and China right back in response. And so nobody's going to want to do that. So they'll withdraw completely out of the Middle East except for Israel, and they'll want Israel to, use one of their nukes to help deal with what's going on in there. But our troops are going to come home to defend the homeland, and they're going to set up along the Rocky Mountains, and that's why I don't see them getting any farther. They're getting into California and Nevada, but they're not getting much past that. And that's because our boys, not only the people that are trained, but even armed civilians are fighting back, and I never really see them winning. I just see this gruesome aspect in California and states like that. And I also see a gruesome aspect along the Mississippi River from our own evils as Americans. There are some greedy, evil Americans out there, and they're going to congregate along the Mississippi River Valley for whatever reason and be violent on each other. And so there is this safe zone along the Rocky Mountains, and it's just east of the Rocky Mountains where the good people are. Well, the fighters are there, the fathers with guns who are willing to protect their wives, and all the people that are kind of being gathered together by the Creator, basically, for the next step, for what happens after this war. Because really what's going to end this war is an act of God. It's not a man's thing. That's why I can use the term Antichrist, because I use that term as a man who thinks his way is the best way, a human way of creating the world, or a person who thinks that they have the solution. So, that's what Hitler was doing. He had the ideal world that he wanted to go and create, and that was a man ego-based concept. It had nothing to do with the Creator. And so the final Antichrist, this final Russian leader that comes up and starts this strike and then gains power from it, and is going to seduce the rest of the world. I mean, us Americans are going to suffer, but for 3.5 years, the rest of the world is just going to sit back and let us take it.
Now, this is taking place as the military is being broken down. We have an article we'll get to after you're on about how Schwarzenegger is upset in California about how all the National Guard gear is missing, a lot of it, Humvees, other equipment, because in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's not even being returned, let alone damaged, it's not even being returned. And you mentioned that these things would happen after our own country comes down a couple notches. What do you see in regards to that, knowing what we know about the UN saying that they may have to provide the United States with food rations if the economy implodes? We see a lot of people in the economic elite in our own country, in the global marketplace, getting their money out of the United States. Where do you see America in the next year economically?
The only thing I can first of all, I'm not a banker. I could care less about money, so I don't focus that much on it, but I am aware of its impact in the world stage. And so if we have I'm not sure what's going to happen. I personally think we're going to have a good year. Not necessarily financially, but as Americans, our lives are going to be better. This is actually a better year than last year, say. But what will happen is when our economy starts to negatively impact the international community, that's when you're going to find Russia coming forward and blaming and using those kinds of scenarios, which they're already doing, to make us the enemy, that our way of us forcing our way into other countries and into other systems and into other worlds is how they're going to get us.
So what you're saying is this can come as a total shock. Life can be going on as usual. You're talking about the television sets reporting the chaos from the natural disasters prior to the invasion. So you're saying there'll be a somewhat of a level of stability prior to that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, things will get bad and things will get worse in those terms. The natural disasters are going to have an economic impact. Losing San Francisco, there's no way you can't have a massive economic impact from losing San Francisco. So those things are going to happen, but I don't see it as like this kind of crisis. The crisis is the day the missiles start to shower down, and that's the day we lose power, and that's the day we're now having to cook on open fires. That's the day where we lose being America. That's the day where America falls in an hour. And so all those other things, all these threats that are going on, that's why I say live it up this year. This is a good year. This is the year to enjoy being American.
How do your visions work, your dreams work in terms of time? Can you see time in terms of the year?
I've had lots of dreams. I've had regular dreams that are dreamy dreams. I've had dreams that are in color, dreams that I barely remember, dreams that I remember later, dreams that are lucid, dreams that are... And there's a very distinct difference in a precognitive dream. When I have a precognitive dream, I feel like it maybe has already happened. The last one I had, I sent to you, is the Russian sub, that there was a Russian sub in San Francisco Bay surveying and finding the coordinates for the missile shield for when they strike. And when I wake up the next day, I feel like maybe that sub is in the bay right now. And this is happening now, and that's how real it really feels. So there's a pretty big distinction in that. Plus, there is life experience from it. That started in my teens. So the first thing I ever saw was Northridge happening. Just having a lucid dream, seeing a sign of LA and a newscaster saying LA has just had a 7-point earthquake, and then seeing these overpasses all collapse. And it was so real to me that I woke up the next day thinking it had happened, and got up and turned on the news and looked at it and I spent all day looking at CNN trying to figure out where the and there was no earthquake. And it wasn't until 8 months later that then we're seeing on LA these helicopter views of all the overpasses that collapsed from the... So I've had these experiences with this. So I don't know when these things are happening. I just know that when I watch Putin say the things that he's saying and the statements that are coming out of Russia and the movements and the posturing, it feels very, very close. I mean, everyone's looking at the same thing. It brings me to what you've been saying the whole time, and I did actually have a vision of this when I first got on the internet. I had a dream that I was dreaming that other people were dreaming the same dreams, and that as I posted on the internet, I'd start to notice and see other people that were also having the same dream. So I think we're all dreaming the same dream, and whether it's us living now or 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, because in one of those references, Washington saw this coming, and so we're all dreaming the same dream. And if it was the Egyptians or the Mayans or all the different cultures, we've all had a fascination with how the world will end or transition or change. I think we all know it will change anyway, and that's why we look at it for how is it going to do it. And those that are really tuned into that, tuned into the universal acacia where it's stored, everything that's already happened and will ever happen is stored in what's called the universal acacia. So someone really tuned into that can go into that and get specific information like Nostradamus did or like the Egyptians did.
These things aren't taught anymore, Leon. The fact that some of us actually have those gifts.
Well, that's the control game. You couldn't control this planet if we were all clairvoyant. And there are nasty entities and beings that are also on this planet. It's a free will zone, and it's a multidimensional reality we live in. So nobody wants humans clairvoyant. How could you control the masses? That includes the presidents, but that includes all the alien energies and all the weird, nasty dimensional energies that control and feed off human pain. So nobody wants this taught. It really is the secret.
Before we let you go, that place of hope that we all want to hold in our heart, no matter what we experience, no matter what we see, no matter how many dead bodies that may fall around us, no matter what may happen in the future, how do we maintain that hope?
I think you're going to have to create that hope, and I think you're going to have to visualize that hope. I think that if these things do unfold for a lot of people, for Americans, it's going to be a good thing because they're going to know why this is happening. I mean, this will be kind of like the Christian Holocaust. The energy is going to try to threaten you and tell you we're living in a world of terror and fear and blah, blah, blah. You're going to have to see yourself living in joy and happiness and living with God and just feel that in your mind, feel that in your body, really just visualize that 5 minutes a day to separate from all the energy that'll be going on around you and really having faith. So you just have to believe it. So you just have to create it. You just have to visualize it. You have to see yourself living in that level of joy and being that loved, you know. So that's the best answer I can give you.